Today we're going to show you how to load and unload film from a 35mm camera, specifically this Olympus OM-1. Let's get to it. So let's load this load of Portra 160 into the Olympus OM-1. I can open up the roll of film first out of the canister, and this is a Portra 160 36 exposure. There's our leader on the film. The Olympus OM-1, like most 35mm cameras, but not all, opens by lifting the film rewind lever or knob, and I lift that up and the door will pop right open on this camera. Let's open her up, and then I can place the film right in there. I like to drop the rewind lever down so it's set. We pull the film across, and there's some type of receiver mechanism right here that's going to hold the film. In this case, it's these slots that hold the film. So we will fire the shutter to release it so we can turn this. The film goes right into one of these slots, like that. So it's right in this slot right here, right here. Then we can start winding the film, and we want to make sure, this is why I like to have it set that way, because let's take up some of the slack that's there, make sure we're lined up, and we need to make sure that these teeth on this gear are going to fit into the holes on the side of this film to make sure it advances properly. So let's do that. There we are. We can see now clearly that these teeth are engaged in that. So we're going to wind through, make sure both sets are engaged, which they are, and then we can close the back. Oh, I did want to make a note of one thing. The Olympus 35mm camera has a counterwind mechanism. So the film comes off and then it winds the opposite way, or emulsion light-sensitive layer out as it winds through this. Some other cameras, such as a Canon FT, which I'll do a demonstration on in a later video, they wind the same way as the film, so it's an emulsion in. We'll close the door right there, and then we will continue to wind. Now, we're going to fire off 3 shots. That's usually enough to make sure that all the film that was exposed to our ambient room light is through, and also that'll bring this film counter from S or start to number 1. So let's wind that. There's 1, and we watch this side also. This film rewind lever turning lets us know for certain that that film is advancing through the camera. There's 2, and there's 3. Now our film counter is set to 1. We're set to take our first exposure, and the film rewind lever is there. The film is nice and taut, and we are now ready to go out and take all of our photographs. We're back in the studio, and we've shot every frame on this 35mm roll, this Portra 160. We can see that our film counter is at 36, just passed. We can't advance the film anymore. We've hit the tension on the end of the roll. Now it's time to get the film from this side of the camera all the way back into that canister so we can send this out for processing, unless you do your own processing. If it's black and white or if it's color, you can do your own processing on a C41 process for color, or whatever flavor of black and white developer you like, even coffee. Did you know that you can develop black and white film with coffee? That's an experiment I've never tried. We're gonna have to try that in a future video coming up. So now, how do we get the film back? Because we know this is a rewind lever right here, but we can't rewind it. It's all tight. It won't go back because it's locked onto this spool. Different cameras have different mechanisms to release this spool so that you can rewind the film back into the canister. A lot of them have a little button that you press in the bottom that'll release that. On the Olympus OM-1, it's very simple. It's this knob right here that says R. We simply turn this lever to R for rewind, I assume. It might mean release, but either way, they both begin with the letter R, and that now releases the catch on this side where the film is and lets us wind the film back onto this canister. So now we can start to wind the film back, and it's winding the film back from this spool into this canister. So we're going to wind this back, and then we're going to listen very closely until we hear that film come loose. So if we continue to wind and we listen, hopefully the microphone will be able to pick this up. You can feel tension building, and bang, we're there. Did you hear that? And then all the way, wind that film all the way back in. You can hear the film is fully inside that canister, and the end of the film is actually ticking. Look at that, right there. Now, and again, on the Olympus OM-1, to open up the camera, we simply lift up on the take-up spool lever, open it up, and now our film is fully wound back inside this canister, all ready for processing. Put it back in here, seal it in there, and this can now go in an envelope to the lab for processing. Unless you have a C41 kit, like the old camera guy does, and he develops his own C41 process. Well, there you have it, a pretty simple demonstration on how to load and unload 35mm film from a 35mm SLR camera, specifically, in this case, the Olympus OM-1. I did want to let all of you know who follow our channel that my videos are going to be a little more sporadic for the next few weeks or couple of months. Michelle and I are working on some pretty big changes in our life and for this channel, which we'll tell you about in a future video. But the changes and the things we're working on are consuming a great amount of our time right now and leaving very, very little time to produce these videos, which I truly love to do. One thing that absolutely charges me up in life is making these videos for you. Having the ability to share some of this vintage knowledge that I have with each and every one of you truly blesses me. And quite frankly, that's one of the things we're working on, is the ability to create the time to share even more of this information with you. Michelle is going to be, I think, a little more prominent on the channel as we move forward. That's my hope. She's a great addition to these videos. I believe this will be a great change for you and for us, and create a lot more fun videos for all of us, both to produce and to watch. I am really looking forward to what's coming in the next few months. And again, as our plans become a little more gelled, a little more firm, you'll be the first to know. I'm James Fisher. This is Vintage Insight Photography. Thanks for coming along on these ventures.